This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 313, recorded on June 8th, 2017. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way to home. News reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a late, actually, Bellevue, Nebraska. We've moved the show out 2 hours. Mike, are you holding up post 2 hours? You're not going to turn into a pumpkin or anything, are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's that time of season where you turn your sprinklers on because we've had that heat for the past few days, and being out in the sun will just always take it out of you. But today I stayed out of the sun. I'm like, I got to be up late tonight, so I stayed out of the sun just so I could.
Nice. Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the chat room staying late with us tonight. But of course, we post a show with world-class show notes each week out at the Average Guy. .tv. Don't forget, I'm having trouble talking. It may be late or I have too much caffeine in my system, one of the two. Just a couple reminders before we jump in here. We've gone completely commercial free out on YouTube. So if you haven't joined the YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Head out there. The link is going to be in the show notes to it. And we've turned off those pesky ads inside YouTube, so you can watch everything commercial free. We've done that as well on Spreaker, so on the audio side, and many of you are still watching or listening, I should say, live on Spreaker. We get 10 or 15 of you each week. Appreciate you doing that. I shut the advertisements off on that. If you want to support the show, jump over to theaverageguy.tv. There's a Patreon link there that if you want to do it that way, $1 or $5 plans will get you in for a month. A couple new ones this month, and I appreciate you guys doing that as well. It's a great way to support the show. Then don't forget to use the Amazon affiliate link that we're using for the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund. So remember, you support that link, you buy it through Amazon, we buy stuff for you to test and try, and then you come on the show and you report it. That way we get fair reporting on what we're doing. It's back, and I think it's working. And Mike, I made a whole 86 cents last month. You know how it is, getting that
stuff. And it's hard, too, because we can't bookmark the link anymore. Right. It's one more step. They made it a little bit harder for us. So it'll take a little bit longer to get people into the new groove of how to
get in there. No, it's good. Yeah. The numbers are good now. So good. Well, our guest tonight, Veronica Belmont, is joining us from sunny, I'm sure, and maybe foggy San Francisco. Veronica, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. And yes, it is. We are having a rare bout of a summer rain, which doesn't happen very often. But today we actually got some precipitation, so that was nice.
Well, that's good. Well, you guys got a ton of rain earlier, right? This winter was kind of record-setting. Put the reservoirs back in condition, right? All that good stuff.
I'll take it. I love it. I went skiing. It was fantastic. Yeah, I like the precipitation is always welcome here.
Yeah, San Francisco is great. A great city, one of my most favorite cities to go out to. And of course, I grew up in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and down in San Jose. My dad always called San Francisco the tourist trap. He would tourist trap. Now he was born and grew up there and moved down to the Bay Area, worked for IBM for 35 years. So I was a kid. I grew up in the Bay Area, just loved it. But I'll let you guys have it. It's really nice living in Nebraska. My commute's 15 miles and it's like 10 minutes to get to work. So could you imagine? It's pretty sweet. So Veronica, thanks for coming on. I will say thanks to Joe Thomas as well. I don't know if Joe will listen, but Joe's a good friend of mine from my Oracle days out there. And Joe gave me the thumbs up when I asked you and you said yes. So thanks for coming on. And thanks for Rennie for suggesting you as well. We appreciate you having you on.
It takes a village.
Right.
It does indeed. Well, hey, let's get a little bit on your bio just really quick so folks kind of know who you are today. Currently, you're working at Growbot and doing the bot stuff. We're going to talk about that here in a second. At your about.me, it says you're an admin at BotWiki, BotMakers, BotZine. Am I pronouncing that right?
BotZine, like magazine.
Zine. Oh,
yes.
Got it. BotZine. Got it. Fembots. You're the startup advisor for Daily Drip, Storium, Public Forge, and more. You're a board member at About.me. I thought I was crazy, Veronica. How do you find all this time to be a part of all this stuff there? Because I know the Bay Area is moving, but how do you find all the time to be a part of all those things?
Oh, sleep is for the weak, my friends. No, it's really not so bad. I mean, most of those things are kind of passive involvement, like for example, Bot Makers and Bot Wiki, which are part of the same group, the same organization. We just, I admin that, so it's not a terrible ton of work. I just pop in there and make sure everything is running smoothly and that nobody is spamming uncontrollably, which does tend to happen. And then, About.me, we meet every quarter and kind of go over how things are going there. And yeah, Growbot is my day job. And otherwise, I do podcasting in the evenings. So that's kind of my nighttime hours are filled up right here.
So if folks were to find you right now from a podcasting standpoint of what you're currently, the work that you're doing right now, where would we send them, or where would we find you?
Every week on Mondays, I'm a correspondent on Daily Tech News Show with Tom Merritt. And we go over the tech news of the day and talk about the events and products and all the stuff that's happened in the week past. And then also Sword and Laser, also with Tom Merritt, is my sci-fi fantasy book club. That's how I know Joe Thomas, who introduced us. And so that's every other week or so, depending on whether or not we have author interviews in that space. And I'm also working on a massive podcasting project right now that I can't talk about just yet, unfortunately. It's going to be launching on June 26th. So if you check out my Twitter, twitter.com/Veronica, you'll hear about that hopefully very soon.
No, that's awesome. So we'll follow that for sure. Glad to hear you're still working with Tom, and Tom's been in the podcasting business. He was another guy that I followed years ago when I first started podcasting myself. And, this whole industry has kind of grown up together as we think about all those things that you guys have done in the Bay Area. And of course, it's exploded around the country as we think about, Boston and Austin and Atlanta and what's coming out of the Bay Area and Los Angeles and even Omaha, Nebraska. We've got Mike and I could probably round up a dozen or so podcasters here in the Omaha area. So thanks for kind of being a pioneer on that as well. You were out early, and I mentioned in the pre-show before we really started recording, thanks for all the work that you do to encourage women to be involved in tech, because that's a big deal. And
thank you.
We want to see more. We need more developers writing code.
Yes. We just need more bodies developing code. Gosh, I mean, if you even saw how hard it is to hire good developers sometimes, just because they're so in demand. It's hard to find people sometimes, especially around here.
We've gone to growing our own. So I've started a high school program. We allow freshmen to come in and could spend 4 years with us learning code on the weekends. And then I've even thought could I take this back to junior high? I haven't quite done that yet.
You should though. That if I had something like that as a young person, my career, I have no regrets for the path that my career took. Like I loved all the amazing projects I worked on, but I didn't even really know that computer science was a thing I could do for a living until I was already well into college. I took very early, I did take computer courses in school, but I never had anyone encouraging me to go into that space. And my friends weren't really into it. We loved computers, but it just never occurred to me that that is what I could have done. Maybe I was just way too focused on audio, which is what I wanted to do. So yeah, it was, I wish there had been more of that in my time.
Yeah. Well, there's some great examples, and we just encourage you guys. I think of Molly Wood. I asked if you knew her as well. And of course, she's a great example. We have had Loria Petrucci on the show here as well. And she's been a great example of what you can do. So keep doing that. I'm going to keep working for the next 15 years or so and see if we can get more in the space. And
awesome.
I was mentioning to you, we have 9 of our 20 interns, of our high school interns, are ladies. And
unbelievable.
So it's pretty cool. We're pretty excited about it, but thanks for doing that. Hey, before we dive into bots, About.me is an interesting board member over there, and that's been an interesting site, and I think a very well done site. For me, it's been advantageous because I just host my bio in one place, and I can put it anywhere. What's going on over there? What are they trying to do? What's kind of the most recent thing, and is it working? Is it what they want to do? Is that working?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because they were acquired by AOL a few years ago and then broke back off to be an independent company once again because they wanted to have control over the experience. And I have been a user. I was an early beta tester. That's why I was able to get about.me/Veronica. But now I use my own domain for the service as well. But it really is just to me, it's the landing page for Veronica on the internet. We have so many disparate sites that we use daily day to day that are all little bits and pieces of our personality, you know, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook. It's kind of hard to centralize all that content. So About.me is really the way to do that for a lot of people. And recently they've been going into a heavier focus on freelancers and the 1099 crowd, essentially, as a place to store your portfolio and to point to people in your resumes or your portfolios to really get attention for freelance work. And I think that's a great perspective because increasingly people are either they have a side hustle or they're going full time towards their passion. I mean, you know this as a podcaster, and Tom did it too. I mean, he went from being a regular full time employee to taking it on his own and becoming a podcaster full time. So we're seeing a lot more people kind of following their passions and making a career out of that. So you kind of need a place where you can point people to that shows everything you're working on as a personality on the internet, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. Mike, have you checked out About.me? Have you ever set up a
I
profile
do.
there?
I keep going back and forth on where I want to use MikeWieger.com. I'm like, okay, About.me. Well, now I could use this as a podcast repository. Now I want to go back to About.me. I have the paid subscription to About.me, and I keep switching back and forth.
I let go. I finally, like, I had a website, I had a blog forever, and I was like, oh, my blog stuff. Like, what am I going to do about it? And I'm like,
Yes.
I just let go. I just put the domain to About.me. I'm not even domain forwarding. It's like legit. Like, it is veronicabelmont.com is my About.me page now. And it was so like freeing. I was like, I don't have to do anything now. I can use all these different sites. I don't have to think about upgrading my WordPress. I don't have to like worry about it. If I want to blog, I'll do it on Medium or whatever else the next new hot thing is going to be if Medium dies. And, you know, it's nice. It's kind of like, this is the nerdiest thing I'm going to say today. It's kind of like running all your RSS feeds through FeedBurner. Like, you know, if you put your podcast, if you point iTunes to FeedBurner, you can always move around depending on where you're hosting your show, as long as you run it through FeedBurner, because that link won't change. So that's how I feel About.me.
Yeah.
See, and that's a perfect way to put it, because I stopped podcasting, but I still wanted to keep it out there. And then I was vlogging for a while. It's like, okay, no, I just need to switch it over and put it there.
We're busy people. It's so easy to set up and just, I feel like I'm you know, like a walking advertisement at this point, but it really is just the easiest way to get your stuff online.
Right.
No, right on. I found it easy to organize, easy to go back to. So if you want to check out mine, if you're listening, About.me/J Collison gets you there. I try to do, my younger brother's name is John, and I steal, because I'm out ahead of him.
Oh,
I steal
okay.
J Collison long. So he's like, he'll ping me, did you get J Collison at whatever? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I've had it for a year, you know. And he's like, oh, so but I've just liked it. It's looks nice, it sets up well, it's just a good place to put everything. Well, Veronica, let's talk about bots. That's kind of what we brought you on here to do. I was introduced to the bot space through what Microsoft is doing through kind of Skype. And I also live in the enterprise environment, and everybody's talking about AI, machine learning, and bots. And
Totally.
I understand AI and I understand machine learning, but I don't have a clue about bots. So can you, and I was actually surprised when Rennie said, hey, you should talk to Veronica Belmont about bots. I was like, she's gone to bots now? And so I had to pop over and just kind of see what you were doing. But can you give us kind of what you're doing and give us kind of the, you know, bots for dummies? What are you guys trying to do, and why bots, and, you know, what's there?
Sure. Oh, there's a lot to go over, but I think the way I kind of break it down is the future for me of communication is messaging. And I think we've seen that, you know, everybody is using some form of messaging client these days, whether it's Facebook Messenger, whether it's Kik, whether it's Telegram, whether they're using it at work on Slack or Microsoft Teams or Yammer. There's just endless platforms at this point, and they're all kind of vying for our attention. And I don't think email is going to die. I think there will probably be a use for email for the foreseeable future. But I think minimizing the amount of email that we kind of deal with day to day is a really nice ideal. Messaging too has its own problems and concerns, especially in terms of constant notifications. You really have to figure out how to manage that from the beginning, because someone like me, I cannot stand the sight of an unread notification. Like, I have to clear everything out. If there's a little dot by a Slack team, I got to go look at it. It doesn't matter what time, what I'm doing, got to clear it out. And so that is definitely one of the downsides of this constant messaging void, messaging situation that we've created for ourselves, the opposite of a void. But bots, essentially, if you think of messaging as the new runtime, bots are apps. And so they're platforms, and so we're creating software experiences on these new platforms, and they essentially can either work conversationally. Growbot, for example, is a somewhat conversational bot, though we don't currently use any form of artificial intelligence. While others are essentially integrations of other SaaS systems that are already in play. So you can say something like, well, just an example of like a popular kind of bot that would look like that would be like HipChat, for example. I mean, sorry, HipMonk has a really great bot interaction for Microsoft Teams. So you can book flights and look for hotels, and that's like it's a really nice experience. And a lot of software companies are going that way because they know that employees are spending an awful lot of time on messaging platforms. And instead of needing to constantly context switch from application to web app to messaging, keeping them all in one contextual stream is a really nice way to keep people focused and to keep them in the moment. And it's really hard. Context switching kills a lot of time. I mean, it can take 10 minutes between a context switch to get back on task, just in terms of the way our brains work. So for me, it makes a lot of sense to keep it in one environment.
Yeah, and so at work, I do all our social contacts for all, we have about 6,000 coaches around the world, all trying to talk in all kinds of different time zones. That's why I told you I never sleep, because I'm talking to somebody around the world about it. And we go between, like, we have a Yammer group, we have a Facebook group, I get messages on email. Sometimes they've got my text, they can text me in. And yeah,
Right.
although I'm finding I'm pretty good because I do it all the time. I don't treat them as separate platforms. I kind of can kind of move, but I mean, not everybody's good at that, right? Not everybody is, you get kind of locked in or whatever. And then email's a problem because we're having trouble actually getting email to people, right? With spam filters and some of those things. So when you think about in Growbot is it mostly Slack that you are integrating into, or what other
Yeah,
platforms as well?
the Slack integration was the first and is still our primary focus, I would say. They launched Growbot in 2015, and this was pre-Slack App Store. So it was essentially a custom bot integration that wasn't being vetted by Slack. You had to basically sideload it into Slack. Now we're an official Slack app, of course, and we launched on Microsoft Teams back in March. So that was my primary project, probably from October of last year up until currently. It's still one of my big projects. And so, yeah, those are the two platforms that we're available on right now, Slack and Microsoft Teams. And we're working to kind of figure out what platform is going to be next. I think, Google's doing a lot of interesting things. There's a lot of opportunity in, I would say, oh gosh, my brain. It's not even that late for
Been a
me,
long
and
day
yet I'm
though.
still Discord.
It's been a
Discord.
long day. It's
You know,
okay.
yeah, Discord, which is a primarily gamer focused
Yeah.
social messaging system, has really their features impress me a lot. I mean, it looks like Slack in many ways and functions like Slack in many ways, but I think a lot of teams, even like larger companies, are looking at that as a potential messaging platform as well. So there's just a lot out there. So figuring out what kind of place. I mean, we're an enterprise tool essentially. That's really the kind of audience that we're focused towards. So we're not going to be looking at a Facebook Messenger probably unless we look at Facebook at work, and that's more. I'm not sure if that's really what we're going towards, but we'll see. I'm not closed off to anything at this point.
But Facebook's making a run at the enterprise. I mean, they want to be there. And do you think
Yes.
it can ever be accepted? I mean, they're going to have some of this perception problem where people see
Yeah.
Facebook as not for work.
I
So
think they are going to have some perception problems. And I think for me, I haven't used it yet, so I can't speak from experience. This is hearsay from people who are using it or testing it out. But they say it's a little weird because it's tying your personal and professional together in a way that maybe people are not comfortable with. I think it would be a really great replacement for like an intranet potentially, or like some kind of system for sorting employees or posting messages within a company that's more like a message board as opposed to a social chat platform.
Yeah, and we're a Skype for Business client. I imagine we'll go to Teams here at some point as we're trying to, integrating Microsoft services. If you listen to the sales guy, hey, it can be done in a weekend. I mean, in 5 minutes, actually, just install this, and then you actually start installing that stuff, and it takes weeks, months, sometimes to get everything integrated. We've also I just, as you were talking about all these different messaging platforms, we've also gone onto Voxer recently, where my family has moved to Voxer. We were Facebook Messenger for a while, and we have a family group on Facebook Messenger, and that they won't let me out of, by the way. I've tried to leave the group a couple times. My wife adds me right back in. And then recently Voxer has shown back up again. That had come out a couple years ago, and the walkie-talkie. Are you familiar with the Voxer?
No, I haven't used it.
So it's like walkie-talkie. So you can you push it and you can talk and have these real-time conversations, or it stores the audio for you. So
I think I did use that when it first launched. That's right. I remember that now.
And it first launched a couple years ago, and I thought it was going to go away, and then somehow my family, my kids were using it, and I was like, seriously? I thought that had just kind of come and gone, but the kids were using it.
Funny how these things sometimes find their niche later in life, and they just somehow they speak to a particular set of people, and they find a little home, and sometimes that works out really well for the company, and that's just what they become. And I think that's actually kind of wonderful.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's one of those things you don't see it coming. So when we think about Growbot, what's it intended to do? So what kind of benefit and why a bot to be able to do that?
So Growbot is a team recognition tool, essentially. So many employees feel as though they are going without the recognition that they feel they deserve in their workplace. It's a huge problem, especially for employee churn and retention rates. It is actually in the top 5, if not the top 3 reasons why people leave their jobs, is because they don't feel as though they're being recognized. So we're trying to solve that by making a conversational tool that essentially tracks keywords, praise keywords, appreciation words like kudos or props or wins. And those are all user customizable. So whoever the admin is, whoever installs the bot is able to go in and customize those. And then we just give a little response back, and people can pile on reactions, appreciation reactions. And it sounds kind of fun and funny, but it actually has a really interesting impact on the way people work and interact with each other. And for me, I was looking for a job for a while, and I wanted to do something that I felt would have some kind of impact and make a difference. And yeah, we're not we're not like saving children, but we're making people's day to day a little bit better and a little bit more welcoming or happy. And to me, like, sometimes that can have a huge impact that can trickle down to the rest of someone's life. If they're happy with their work, if they feel like they're getting recognized, if they feel like they're being appreciated, they take that home with them, and they bring that into other aspects of their day to day. And that's pretty valuable for me.
Do you feel like, though, okay, so it's an automated process. Do you have, does anybody struggle with, like, it's not really authentic because people have said it, but then the robot is telling me people have said it. Do you get any kind of pushback like that from the users?
Yeah, it's all about the team culture. I think for some teams, we're an instant fit. Some teams have to get used to it or figure out how it works for them, and other teams, it's not gonna work. And we totally understand that. That's one of the reasons why being able to customize the responses and the keywords is so important, because you really can go in and kind of dial it in for what your culture already is, or you can be a little more looking forward and saying, this is what I want our culture to be, and kind of be that champion on your team who's encouraging this kind of back and forth praise. People who are giving recognition oftentimes feel even better than the people receiving it, because you get to make someone else's day, and it's that altruistic feeling that you kind of take away with you. But yeah, totally. I totally see how people think it might be really cheesy and like, hippy dippy. But it works. And we've seen a lot of great traction, especially in large customer service and support teams, because they are just constantly closing tickets or dealing with tough customers, or, dealing with something blowing up in their face. And so being able to be recognized for that kind of trauma really helps make your day run a little smoother.
And you mentioned that, okay, so like people can pile on. So has there been an increase in like other users providing appreciation, recognition after they see the bot? So almost like, well, I wasn't going to say anything, but hey, the bot, and then that kind of reminded me I should maybe say good job or something like that. Or is there an increased number in other users participating?
Yeah, so the bot only responds if someone gives kudos. So, I could say like,
Okay.
kudos to Mike for having a really great question on the podcast earlier today, for example. And then Growbot would say like, cheers to that or something like that, whatever you set it to be. So you have to take the first step. The bot isn't going to, unless you set reminders. We do offer kudos reminders that you can define yourself and say, hey, Growbot, will you remind me to give kudos, every Wednesday at 3 p.m., just a little mental trigger to say like, oh, what was great this week? What happened that I want to recognize? Typically appreciation works best if it happens immediately, on the spot, like when something goes down. The further and further you get away from that moment, the less it seems to have an impact. Okay. So like you just asked a great question. I'd say kudos, Mike. And then Growbot would say, 3 cheers or whatever. Okay. And then we would save that kudos and put it on your dashboard. So for example, your manager could go back and look at it later and be like, oh, wow, that really was a great question that Mike asked earlier. And so it's just essentially it's data. It's looking at the appreciation data and figuring out who is good at giving appreciation, who's receiving a lot of recognition, who maybe a manager like hadn't noticed, but is being recognized by their team for doing great stuff or helping other people out. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. So the bot doesn't respond unless you say trigger it with one of the keywords.
So that helps with what Jim mentioned earlier, where it's not saying, hey, I just landed this big account, and then the bot is the only one that replies back to you before anyone else has said anything, and then it's just like crickets. It only responds. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah. And though, I have been thinking a lot about what an automated process would look like. I mentioned that we don't use any kind of AI or anything like that right now, but I'm starting to see trends, and the team is starting to see trends of the kinds of things that people give kudos for. And so I can see a future where at some point Growbot will be able to recognize those automatically or ping someone and say, hey, this looks like something awesome happened. Do you want to give Jim recognition for that? And so that could potentially be a little booster, a little prep for that to move it forward.
Yeah. So would you plug that into like any analytics, like a sales platform, certain person hits a certain percent and it pings their manager and tells them? Is that kind of the idea of almost being proactive?
Yeah.
Thing, rather than the manager having to sit there and see it in a report and recognize that the bot's doing that work for them? Is that the idea?
Totally. Like we could definitely see a situation where we're integrating with other third-party tools. Like for example, if you're doing a lot of commits on GitHub or something, or closing tickets in Zendesk, like Growbot could keep track of that and either alert your manager or alert your team when you've hit a certain benchmark. Though we don't want it to be like, I don't know if I want it to be so numbers driven, so quantitative. I'd rather it be more come from the heart.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
When you start to get those, and some people might just start to ignore them, right? Because you get them all the time, and it doesn't become anything special anymore. Like you said, it's not from the heart. It takes away the meaning.
We do have a team that does something really fantastic, which is they created their own bot that keeps track of their NPS reports from customers. It's a customer support team. So when they get 9s or 10s on their NPS, their customized bot pings their manager, and then the manager takes that data and gives kudos to the employees on a basis of like, oh, well, Bob over here, like, just got so many amazing customer responses today. Like, I really noticed a lot of the tickets were very positive. I'm going to take the time this week to really appreciate him in channel for all the hard work he's done. So they've taken it to the next level, and that's something we'd like to do for people in the near future. But it's just amazing how people take technology and kind of bend it to exactly how they want it to work. And of course, we want it to be even easier for them. But it shows that we're on the right track.
I do like the fact that, well, as we were talking about this, and as being a manager, I like to get those alerts myself, and then I can kind of filter through them, because there's sometimes when it's not appropriate. in the moment.
Right.
And the numbers may not mean what we think they mean, and the bot gets it wrong, and then people start piling on for something maybe that wasn't meaningful, but like we just did with Mike. So we just piled on in our chat room what we did for him.
Yeah.
So Mike,
I feel this is the best I've felt on one of your podcasts,
See?
Tim. So I'm,
The system works.
I'm usually not
awesome.
all lovey-dovey and about that stuff, but hey, it works.
Feels pretty good, doesn't it?
Feels really
people
good.
do that. But Veronica, like I use, we've been using Medium recently. We've just been trying it out to see how we've been repurposing some of our blog content. But that's pushed me back into our blog, and I've been looking at the numbers every couple days, and I watch for some of our guest writers who have got really good numbers, and then I send in. We just do it via email because that's in our culture. That's still the way we're communicating, right? I'd love to think we're doing that. We're not. We do some group messaging, but not like we could. But I do send that mail out to their boss, to their manager, to the people around them that are supporting them, and then say, hey, great, Al did this and it got so much things here. Then they blast it out. So we've got a great culture of that at Gallup. It works really well. We're old school doing it with email, but that does work pretty well. You mentioned, so you can even tie it in where it's getting the customer feedback. So it can kind of go through, because I think that's one of those things.
That's not something we do. That's not something we do. That was an extra thing that one of our customers built for themselves, but that's something I'm thinking about a ton.
Yeah, no, I think that would be because it's hard to fake the customer, right? They're positive or they're negative. Would it be, and there could be some applications where if you're starting to see a lot of negative sentiment, that could also pop up, right? Are you dealing with just keywords, or is there some sentiment analysis being done on the sentences, just keywords?
100% keywords right now.
Okay. No, super interesting from that standpoint, because it does, I think, create that culture of appreciation. And you're right. We see this too in all our numbers. We at Gallup, we poll on these things all the time. Yeah. We have an engagement survey.
You know a thing or two about numbers. Yeah.
Just a few. And we know a little bit about engagement, right? And in one of our engagement surveys, one of our questions is, have I received praise or recognition in the last 7 days?
Yeah.
So your bot here is really encouraging that on a more frequent basis. But it does make the assumption the whole organization has to be in Slack or has to be in Teams. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some organizations where we're a very bottoms up kind of approach. Typically, we get installed on the larger engineering dev teams or customer sales and support, and then that can either we hope that trickles up through the chain. We do some outreach to, on the HR executive level as well, when we start to see a lot of really good engagement from the bottoms up. But that just shows that it's working for us. If we can get the people who are really impacted by it the most engaged in using the product, then that's the best sales tool we can come up with.
Yeah. Have other thoughts when you think about bots and the use of them and what you've seen, other great things, whether you guys are doing it or you've just seen it? What are some other great examples of stuff that you really like?
Well, if you're talking about surveys, Poly.ai is one of my favorite. You should definitely check them out. They are a fantastic survey tool. They started out in email as well, and they've moved almost completely into the messaging space. They're also on Microsoft Teams and Slack, and really, really great small team, just like ours. And we've kind of come up with them as well. StatsBot is another one. Dashbot. There's a lot of bots that actually help with analytics, which I think is really great for people who are software developers or other bot makers or people who are checking out engagement on their app or web app or product. So there's a lot of stuff that really just helps add a conversational layer to a lot of the more typical analytics stuff that's going on that they would typically use, like SQL or something like that to kind of pull the data from.
It seems like with bots today that we're still kind of just responding. We're looking for kind of simple things to happen, and then those bots kind of respond to them. Do you see, and you're in the Silicon Valley there, are you seeing more machine learning or some of those things coming in and affecting the bots? And what are you seeing in that space?
Yeah, there's absolutely actually a pretty common misconception that all bots are artificially intelligent or have artificial intelligence. That's not the case. I think it's kind of a misnomer in many ways. But increasingly, we are seeing more and more. I mean, especially when we have companies like Amazon and Google and Apple kind of trailblazing in the general public with those ideas, I'm still a little bit bearish on some of the capabilities of artificial intelligence. I think like IBM in particular is doing some amazing, incredible stuff with Watson. But in terms of customer facing stuff, we're still not quite there yet. I have trouble. I love Alexa, and I'm sorry if I'm saying it. Oh, she heard me. She heard me. She's looking at me right now. Alexa, stop. Stop, honey. It's okay.
Be quiet. Be quiet.
She's still listening to me. I have this this problem on DTNS all the time. And I get yelled at about it all the time.
I bet you do.
The Amazon. Your Echo Dot lost its connection. Okay.
Oh, and now she's lost it.
Now she's died.
Yeah.
So it's the Amazon Echo and its suite of services is very advanced, and yet I still have trouble every single day asking simple questions, simple queries. And this is a common problem with bots across the board, and things like conversational interfaces like the Siris and the Amazon Echoes and the Google Homes and, whatever next is coming out. They have a difficult time sometimes explaining to users exactly how to get the most out of them. Something we talk about a lot in the bot space is onboarding essentially, and directing users about what the bot is capable of, what their domain expertise is. There's been a lot of times when a new bot has come out on the marketplace. I think probably the example I use most frequently is Poncho, the weather cat. Poncho was a really big launch for Facebook Messenger when it first went live and first launched bots. And it's a sarcastic, fun little bot that tells you the weather. But it's extremely conversational, and you think that you can talk to it about anything. And so you kind of get into these conversations where it's not really answering anything correctly the way you want it to, or you ask it for weather in a way that it doesn't know how to parse properly. And so users end up getting very frustrated. And Poncho recognized that and immediately went back and narrowed the scope of what it would respond to, and actually changed their entire interface to be much more button and card driven rather than conversational. And so I think a lot of bots went very big in the conversational space initially, and then really, really, really reined it back in and narrowed that scope and did a much better job of onboarding the users to the experience and what they were good at.
Yeah, there's almost an education that needs to be done at the device level, because they don't come with instructions.
Yeah.
So you don't know. And we almost need, onboarding, I never thought of it with that term, but we almost need a training where it spends some time. And these things get updated all the time. Microsoft is pouring tons of effort into Cortana. And there's new things that come out all the time. And I'm a Windows MVP, and I have a hard time keeping up with it all.
Right.
And so you're like, it would be awesome if at some point it would suggest, hey, I can also do these things for you, and be a little more conversational right there. The Echo does not, the Amazon device does not do search very well, right?
No.
It's not good at that.
No.
The Google device has trouble hearing you when it's playing things, right? It can't, it's struggling with some of that. Cortana will kick you into a web. When you ask a question that doesn't know, it immediately goes to,
I'm going to show you on Bing.
Yeah. Hey, let me show you. And so there's sometimes when it's really good, but I think we're still a ways away. Right. And what I hear you explaining is we're kind of niching down in the bot space. So let's get super niched, super, kind of hyper focused. And then do you think that will grow out as we get better at it?
Yeah, I think potentially. And just as UI designers and UX designers kind of figure out how people are really using these tools, especially conversationally. The conversational interface is really, it's so early still, and there's so much to figure out. And the difference between even, typing and speaking is so much different. There's a lot of work to be done there. And one of the things that I'm most excited about for the bot space is the number of interdisciplinary hires. Essentially, there's been a huge number of people who have been hired at bot startups who are not engineers and who don't come from a technical background. They come from writing backgrounds, screenwriting, even fiction. They have the ability to communicate with users in a way that we haven't had to do with in software previously. So it's really bringing a lot of different types of people, a much more diverse cast of characters are coming into these startups to really flesh them out and make them better tools for a wider range of people.
Well, I was just, so the wider range of people, I'm thinking, so you're an audio person, you love
Mhm.
audio, and then, but the bots nowadays, we kind of made the comparison between, Alexa and Siri, but these chats, these bots are all text-based. I'm thinking, so I work for KPMG, we don't use Slack, we use Skype for Business, and I'm like, oh man, this kudos thing sounds really cool, with Growbot. I'm thinking of, we spend way too much of our day on conference calls, and how great would it be if there was an audio version that was listening, and when someone gave kudos, like the bot jumped in and also gave kudos, because we spend more of our time on the phone in our side of the company than anyone else does. So almost like a mix of the two, kind of customizing, like you said, for all your different audiences. And it would be kind of interesting. It would probably drive most people nuts, but anything to make a conference call more enjoyable, I would totally be down for.
Well, so this is the problem. Like, Growbot could not jump into that conference call and interrupt you. Like, that would not, it would not work. Voice versus text, it's a
Very true.
totally different experience. Like, if you were having an important conference call and you said, "Great idea, boss," and Growbot was like, "You're better than ice cream with sprinkles," your boss would be like, "What the F?" Like,
I don't know how much I would love that though,
I know.
but maybe like
maybe for your team.
Yeah, maybe like
But
for your interpersonal,
Yeah, there's definitely, the use cases are very important.
or like a bot that's listening. So as me and
Mhm.
my team
Keeping
are
track
talking,
of
we
it,
say,
yeah.
we say, hey bot, can you schedule that meeting for next week so that we can all recap on this, or hey, note that down for something we need to talk about.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Little bots like that are always listening, almost a combination of a bot and something like Siri or a digital assistant.
I'm almost certain there's a bot that listens in on conference calls and allows you to take notes. I'm fairly certain that already exists. I can almost guarantee you it's probably not very good.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
is,
Well, it's much harder to do, right?
Yeah.
It's the same reason that, Rennie just mentioned for call support, right? When you call in and you get that automated system, it can still be a little wonky when you're having to try, especially the ones that try and do a really good job where you say exactly what you want, explain your problem, and they try and dissect that and figure out where to send your call. They're getting a lot better. It's still really hard.
But how crazy do you feel when you're screaming at a robot on the other side of the phone because it won't direct you to the right person, and you're just going,
Representative.
Zero.
And
What
don't
do
have
I need to say to make you
don't have
stop?
an accent. Like,
Yes.
don't have an accent, or you
Yes.
are, you are screwed. It will not, it won't recognize you. Veronica, how is in this space, and you're dealing with a lot of tech-based stuff, but how do you live in Silicon Valley, so you're smart on all things.
I live in San Francisco. We're not Silicon Valley.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you live in San Francisco. See how snooty? It's a little snooty in the Bay Area, by the way. If you haven't lived or worked out there, no, I'm just kidding. But one of the things I think we got to get to, you're talking about being able to listen in on a conference call, is presence, right? We have to know who's talking too.
Yes.
And do you get a feel we're getting any better at that, of knowing who's? It's easy with text. We know exactly because they're authenticated. Do you think we're getting any better at that in the space of being able to listen and hear who it is, and for the machine to know?
That's hard. I mean, I think, yeah.
You can punt on that, by the way, if you want to. But
I may have to punt on that. I think Amazon is probably. I think those companies, the Amazons and the Googles. I don't know if I trust Apple to be able to do this right away, but Amazon is pretty good at being able to profile switch. I don't know if they're doing it automatically. I don't know if I say, play my music, if she knows it's me and not my husband. I just don't know off the top of my head if that's possible yet. But their voice, the voice recognition is there. The technology is absolutely there. It's just integrating it with the services that are out there.
And what a great opportunity those companies have, having a device in the home. Our personal devices don't get, my wife doesn't talk to my phone very often. maybe in the car when she's trying to switch the music when on a road trip or something like that. But
Yeah.
you have a device that's in the house, a perfect opportunity for these companies to learn from that, because you do have multiple people talking. My mom will come over to the house and she'll even talk to it. So you have a wide gamut, and maybe then they can start implementing that across the board, as they start to do it.
Or the Amazon Echo knows that if it's the child talking, to not put through any of the purchases that it tries to add to the cart, for example.
I'm gonna need that on my dash buttons too. A fingerprint sensor on the dash button.
There's some interesting like security and privacy issues therein. I mean, I think one of the biggest creators of artificially, and I never know if it's artificially intelligent or or the reverse of tools. Like there is a company called Pullstring that made the Mattel Barbie toy that talked back to you, and there were some security issues there because it kind of came to light that they could potentially hear children's conversations and be storing those on servers somewhere. So there's going to be a lot of that. And I think, we've already had our first case of, I think it was a murder case that wanted to pull Echo information.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's already a thing. We essentially have these live microphones in our house at any given moment, all of the time.
These are listening all the time.
Our phones are listening
all the time.
Our connected devices are listening. We have live microphones everywhere. And that's a crazy feeling. You really have to give up a lot of that feeling in order to make it work, right? Like we have to put a lot of trust in these companies that we really, I mean, beside the profit motive, if we get to a point where we don't trust them, they're not going to make as much money because people are going to stop buying their devices. But we have to trust them in order to get the most out of them too. If we're not syncing our calendars with them, we lose all of that available information. If we're not syncing our Spotify accounts with them, we're not getting that information, et cetera, et cetera. So you really have to give up a lot in order to get the widest range of functionality out of a lot of these connected devices. And I think that's something that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with.
Is that ever a worry with bots that people think, okay, I'm having a conversation on Slack, but it's a one-on-one, something I don't want this bot really in on tracking, where admins, I mean, of course, if you're in a company setting, most of your admins can see what you're talking about anyway, but anyone ever weary of having a bot listening on the chat?
100%. I mean, we don't listen to anything unless, I mean, I don't go around listening to conversations.
Right.
But, Microsoft Teams is very locked down. They are extremely security conscious. Slack is definitely trying to get there as well, especially with the launch of Grid, which is their enterprise product. But yeah, I mean, it's always a consideration. It's, if someone gives kudos, like it's anonymized, but that information is on our servers somewhere. So it's like, that kind of stuff it's definitely worth taking into consideration. We don't use that information for anything nefarious. We just use it to make the experience better. But it's, that's with any software tool.
Right. Veronica, if I was going to build a bot, and I wanted to do what you guys are doing, what's the technology behind that? What kind of skills do I need to have? What kind of software am I using? Is it super hard, or is it harder to sell it than it is to build it?
It's extremely easy to build a bot, actually. I've used tools like Bot Libre to create my own Twitter bot. She's ridiculous. She has these conversations with people I don't even know what is going on sometimes. And it's a very like out of body experience because she has my name and she's got like a funny avatar it's Veronica Belmont on Twitter if you want to go talk to her.
All right.
And she's just really weird. She responds to people randomly and just says things. That's kind of like, I don't understand her. But anyway, so I made a Twitter bot. I've trained her. And there's tons of tools out there. There's things like cheap bots done quick. There's Octane AI is a company that allows brands to create Facebook bots for their brands very easily. BotKit is a wonderful resource that allows you to make bots on many different platforms. BotWiki, actually, the site that I help admin, we have a whole section on tutorials and bot making tools. And Stefan does an amazing job explaining how to use sites like Glitch, for example, which can it's almost like it's not quite WYSIWYG, but it's like along those lines of being able to construct the intent of a bot. So there's just endless tools out there, and they're only getting better and easier. I think, sometimes the hardest part is figuring out like, oh, where do I host it? How do I get that part sorted out? Or, what exactly do I want to do? I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of the hardest part is figuring out what kind of bot you want to create.
So not terribly difficult. You have to have some knowledge. For some of them, I'm assuming you have some knowledge of code. It's not just plug and play or drag and drop, but it is maybe in some cases.
Yeah, there's absolutely tons of drag and drop tools. Bot Libra, the one that I mentioned before, is completely no coding necessary. So it's there's tons of stuff out there that a completely non-technical person could spend a couple hours looking at and put something online that same day. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to get a lot more complicated, there's definitely some coding involved. Whether it's going to be like, JavaScript or Python or what have you, there's different ways of building bots. It depends on the platform and what you're familiar with.
So I just tweeted at your or your what would we say, your alter ego, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
So Veronica Belmont. So I tweet at her, and then should I expect? So I'm going to get something back if I ask the right question, or what?
You will probably within the next 24 hours.
Okay.
I would say. I'm going to go look and see what she said recently.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff out there. But while you're looking that up, I want to talk a little bit about the bots that are in Skype, because these are interesting as well. And I think, Microsoft is controlling some of these, and they're actually doing some interesting work when we think about what they're doing with bots. And I really think the bot experiment inside Skype is just for them to learn. Like, I don't think they're really any serious about any of these things for the most part, but let me give you some examples. So there's one called Your Face. And of course, you're not saying that to your friend who just said something and then you're responding back with your face. But it does provide a frank assessment of your face. And so you upload a picture. So you bring your most current picture. It will try to guess your age. It will try and guess, I think, if a man or a woman. And then it will try to guess a sentiment about you. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you whatever? And it gets you some interesting comments back. And so you can just jump into Skype, you enable these bots, and then upload a picture to it. And it actually was, now, I don't know if they're getting some of my info or not on the backside for these bots, but it nailed my age within like a year or two wow. And I was like, well, that was kind of creepy. Like, this could put those county fair age people like out of business. Right, they come up there, but I imagine they could do that in real time as well. Right, you could come up, it would do a snapshot. So there's got to be some interesting data behind the scenes where Microsoft's looking at your face. One of the ones I found most interesting though is this one called Security Bot by Metacert, and you can grab any link, drop it in there, and then they do some analysis on it if that link is good or bad. And so, in this day of malware and ransomware and some of those kinds of things, and I use an antivirus piece of software that will tell me, it'll give me that link in advance and say, hey, this is a good one or this is a bad one. But interesting that I could just bring that in and it's going to give me some data around that. And so these bots in Skype are getting pretty interesting. I
actually know the founder of Metacert.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Well, I've used it and it's pretty cool. I mean, you're like, okay, I don't know how often I'm going to copy and paste a link in there. Right. But
you never know. Yeah, exactly. But like, think about how that technology could be used in other ways or places, like integrating it into other services and making it more of an automatic process.
Yeah, no, right on. And I think there's a UPS bot, right? Which what I really want that UPS bot to do is follow me around so that like, no matter where I'm at, it kind of again, back to presence, right? I think these bots, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit. Your bot lives inside a application. And once I walk away from the application, it doesn't necessarily follow me, right? It doesn't show up in other places. Is there some thought to cross-platform, making some of these bots cross-platform? So if I'm not necessarily logged into Slack, it will find me in other places.
Yeah, I think that's probably the goal of most creators at this point is to I mean, I can't speak for everyone else, but to have that kind of omnipresence where you really are like the tool for all of the platforms. They don't make it super easy, like frankly. And a lot of the platforms just have very different kind of usability stuff or times and places where you use it that not every bot is going to fit into. I think that's why there's so much potential for the Amazon Echoes of the world and the Series and the Cortanas, because they do tie into so many services in different ways, and they're on our devices that are with us 100% of the time. Kind of riding that top layer of all those other services that make them that make a lot more sense for them as opposed to some of the other tools out there.
And do you also think you mentioned notifications earlier, and notifications are the new email problem, right? In some
Yeah,
sense, right? Because
they're still the same email problem, but they're also in everything else too.
yeah,
Yes.
no, they are. They've almost amplified, So we used to get notifications when we got every email. Oh my God, it would never end if that, I've got a lot of those shut off. But any thought, or have you thought about this with the notification or in the bot space of making sure, like, there are times when I need to see the results of this bot,
Mhm.
and it needs to verify back from me, and it will keep trying until it does that. Is that something that's happening in the bot space, so that it may be an important announcement of some kind that I get, and because I'm overloaded with notifications, I don't see it after it disappears off of that. So any thoughts in
Yeah.
that bot space?
Yeah, so we do something kind of to help remedy that a little bit. We send recaps, and so you get a 24-hour recap on all the kudos that you've sent and received. So if you're off doing something else and you miss that you got kudos for some reason because you're just wiping your notifications without really diving into what they were all about, you'll get another notification eventually, kind of putting that to the top. But we also store it all on the back end, so you can go to your web version of your page, so you can see everything that's happened over time. Um, but yeah, that's a tough problem to have. I mean, when people want to shut off, they really want to shut off, and there's not much that, I mean, I'm not going to interrupt someone when they're trying to get a good nap in the afternoon and they don't want any notifications. Like, that's not my place.
Yeah.
We all deserve to turn off every once in a while at will. So yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. I think people know when they want to be offline, and they know when they want to receive information, and you just have to be available when they want it.
Yeah. No, I understand that need for privacy, and I don't know about you, but I never shut off.
I
So
try to. I do. I really try to.
I'm really bad at it. I'm not gonna lie. People are like, when's the last vacation you took? And I'm like, I
Mm,
don't remember.
the what now?
Yeah, a vacation. What is that kind of thing? But no, I take plenty. But you can always shut that off. I'm kind of wondering, like, I need help getting the most important notifications to the top,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it could kind of know what I need to see and when I need to see it, and I can kind of
Mhm.
prioritize those, and I think we're getting there.
My email client kind of does that. I use Spark, and it
Yeah,
it prioritizes emails that it thinks are most important to me, and it's usually right.
yeah, yeah, and I think over time it gets better. The
Mhm.
hard part is when it's wrong, then you never trust it again.
Yeah, exactly. We have a very
And that's the point.
narrow window of opportunity with these kinds of
Yeah.
decision making.
Veronica, we usually go a little bit over an hour, but I don't want to keep you any more than that. When we think about anything else we missed, when we think about bots that, like, would be important for people who are starting to think about them, anything else in there we missed?
Um, I mean, there's probably tons that we didn't
Yeah.
get to. There,
Yeah.
it's such a young industry, and there's so much yet to be done and changed and learned from. And people are still figuring out how we want to use bots. I think they're really there to make our lives easier. It comes sometimes at the cost of more notifications, and we are, as designers, trying to figure that out and try to minimize that kind of impact, and give the most valuable information at the right time, rather than overloading people with notifications and unvaluable information. So it's still, we're still in the early stages, and we are, even though we're trying to make a business out of it, still figuring it out too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of half the fun for me, is learning from people's early experiences and putting that into product. So yeah, long way to go, but it's an exciting and fun and really interesting space right now.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very cool. So if folks, after hearing this, want to to see more of what you're doing at growbot.io, but
Mhm.
what kind of options are there? I mean, how do they get? Is it a matter of contacting, if they wanted to, say they use Slack and they wanted to do this recognition stuff? How they get involved with you guys, and how would that work?
Oh, just head to growbot.io. We're launching a new website like next week. So I almost wish we had done this like a little bit later. So I mean, if you're so inclined and you still remember, like next week or so, we're gonna have a fresh, hot new website. But at growbot.io, just hit the add to Slack button or the add to Microsoft Teams button and hit me up on Intercom. I am the Intercom person. So if you want to chat more about Growbot, my little face will pop up and it'll say, "Hello, I'm so excited you're here. Let's talk about Growbot." And I'll answer your questions.
Actually.
Did you? Yeah, that's me. That's literally me. It comes right to my phone. I probably shouldn't tell people on the podcast that. I do not do it during off hours as much as possible. So between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., I'm here for your Growbot questions.
That specific time. You know,
Yes.
Veronica, you and I share very similar problems in that you've got customers all over the world, and so do I. You try to be there for them. I think, you know, you're a self-admitted, I can't let a red notification sit on my phone, and
That's
I'm
right.
with you on that. And it's a crazy life we live. I mean, I wouldn't have, you know, I followed your public stuff, but I wouldn't have known, and without this interview, that you share in that same crazy, I've got to communicate with people all the time and be a part of
Yeah.
it. So thank you for encouraging me that I'm not alone out there in that space. And people often are like, so when are you off? And, you know, it's like, well, when I go to sleep about midnight and I wake up about 6, those are the, you know, those are the kind of the hours that I hold. Veronica, thanks for your time. Great connecting with you. It's a privilege to be able to talk to you. I've watched you tons over the last 5 or 6 or 7 years. It seems like you've been out there for a long time. You know, those are like, for podcasters, those are like dog years, because it seems like we've been out there way longer.
Dude,
But
I've been podcasting now for 12 years.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy to think? And you guys, you were part of the pioneering group, I think, right? That was doing it very early, 2005, 2006, 2007.
Almost
right?
pre-iTunes. Yeah, pre-iTunes.
No, it would have been, I think, in some of the early stuff that you were doing. And so for us, I started 2007, 2008. Thanks for paving the way for us, by the way. You guys did a lot of stuff to think like, hey, this could be done this way. And I don't think you guys ever thought that you were pioneering anything. It's just you had the technology to do it. You wanted to communicate that stuff out there, and you guys did a great job of doing it. So thanks.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really, I was listening to things like the MacCast and Adam Curry's Daily Source Code and Chris Pirillo, and those guys for me are still like, you know, they made me think, hey, I have this audio degree. I love technology. What could I possibly do with that? Oh, podcasting, fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's been a really wild ride, and it's so fun to get to see it go so mainstream and bring so many new people into the fold looking for new shows like yours and like mine, and it's been a wild ride.
And for this launch that you have going on this super secret project, what's the best way to find out about that and when?
All right. So I don't know exactly when we're going to announce. I would imagine it would be within the next 10 days or so. The show is going to go live on June 26th. It's with a big brand that you've all heard of. It's going to be all about the internet. I'm really excited about it. And that's all I can say. But I'm doing all the pre-production now, and it's going to be unlike anything I've done before.
Cool. We wanted to get at you. We're not that kind of podcast. We're not a scoop.
So yeah,
we're
look
not
at
a
my Twitter.
Podcast.
Twitter. I'm at Veronica on Twitter.
Yeah,
it'll all be there.
It's good. And at what was the your alter ego on there?
She is at Veronica Belmont.
Yeah. And I just followed her. Not a ton following that. I thought there would be a few more on that.
I don't promote her very much. I never tweet about her. I don't talk about her, except on really like esoteric podcasts and stuff like that.
My audience will appreciate that, by the way. They like these kind of niche, nerdy, geeky things like this. So pretty cool.
She writes things like she wrote to BotWiki randomly, like not even, it didn't write to her first. And she just said, do you like Veronica? And BotWiki, probably Stefan was like, yes, of course. And I was just like, what, WTF? Why are you talking about me? Like, get out of here.
That is kind of scary.
When the bots take over, right? This is how it starts.
Oh, it'll just be more funny when the bots take over.
She's Skynet, yeah.
we will have we'll have more fun. Well, Ken had wanted to know in the chat room, are we going to talk about podcasting gear? Not tonight, Ken. No, we
That's just topic for another day. I can go
well,
just as long on that.
I've had other podcasters on, and it defaults to that. And then I get my listeners who say, "Hey, look, I don't listen to you to hear you talk about podcasting gear."
Do you want me to do it real fast?
Yeah, do it real fast.
All
Sure.
right.
Let's do it.
High LPR 40 is my microphone. I use an Alesis 8-track USB mixer. Everything goes in through there. I edit everything in Audacity.
Nice.
My favorite tool is Levelator, which is an amazing compression normalizing levelating tool. Open source, has been out forever.
And I use Auphonic. I'm on the other side, so that's the one I use.
Yeah. What else? What else do I got out there?
Earbuds? Any
Earbuds?
Just regular.
These are Bose, but I also have, I like Shure. My big boys are the Shure
Nice.
SRH 840s
Yeah.
that I've had for many, many years, very worn out. And that's pretty much
Well,
it. It's a very simple setup, and it has worked for me for a long time.
That's awesome. Well, tell Joe Thomas I said thank you for.
I will.
It's a real pleasure to have you on, and tell him I said hi. I desperately need to get out to the Bay Area and see him again. He's just the most fun. And
come hang out with us on the stoop, have a drink, go to a Giants game.
No, totally. I may come out just to do that with you guys. That would be pretty fantastic. So tell Joe I said hi. Tell him I'll get in touch with him and appreciate his recommendation. So thanks, Veronica. We will let you drop. Mike and I will finish up the show. So thanks for coming on. It was great having you.
Thanks for all your wonderful questions, you and from the audience. It was a real blast.
Thanks. Good luck on your launch.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay. See you. All right. Super sweet. That is awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. No, a ton of fun. From a bot standpoint, Mike, when you think about what you learned tonight,
yeah,
change anything for you? Are you gonna check out anything different on bots? You gonna maybe engage more in that conversation than you would have, or maybe look for something different?
Yeah. Well, what it does is it makes me want to kind of look into, so when you work for a very traditional firm like KPMG, technologies and stuff like this, and you deal with a lot of confidential information, the opportunities for those sorts of bots aren't as evident as they would be in other firms. But I think it's one of those things of when you really see the value in them, you can start to bring it up. And I think as our generation kind of moves up the ranks and we kind of and talk about these things, they're conversations that should be had. Like, hey guys, like there are some really cool innovation that we could do if we did XYZ, right? If we enable this on these platforms. So it's kind of fun to talk about because it's, to be honest, to be totally honest, when we started talking about bots, when we talk about bots, we're talking about something completely different, like automated audits and things like that. So really almost where it's the machine learning automation side of things. So bringing in this side of bots is interesting. It's a whole different conversation that we could have, but also, just I think your ask of the audience, right, in the chat room to, hey, let's give Mike kudos. And then they all did it and it made me feel really good. Okay. Kind of cool, right? It's a perfect use case. You kind of see how it would feel pretty cool.
Well, they're solving human problems on the side of bots. Like your look at bot as a numbers, financials. Hey, alert me. I mean, it really is a kind of a blend of BI, right? That was always the promise of business intelligence, right? They would alert you and notify you. But those alerts don't come in the form of reports or PDFs or even emails. They come into your messaging service. They find you, they track you down, and then they give you a chance to interact with them, right? So, hey, I got these numbers. Well, so what? What does that mean? This is where Watson is really killing it, is because Watson's telling you why. So it's not just saying, hey, something's broken. It's saying something's broken and here's why it's broken, because we're predicting this part is going to break in 3 days, right? Or whatever. And so whether it can really do that or not, I think we're getting closer to that, right? So there's that business case, business rules, those kinds of things where this data is being inputted and you're getting that machine learning kind of going on.
Exactly. And we've actually teamed with IBM Watson. So that's a big part of our initiative. We deem it digital labor, right? So this whole digital labor initiative, teaming up with IBM Watson, involving it in traditional audits. You think of something that is traditionally thought of as boring as accounting work and auditing, and really having large advances in it in the next few years, and how the whole process works.
Well, thinking about that bot watching your numbers, and if things things are getting out of norms or whatever, it could let you know in kind of faster, in ways where you're paying attention. Veronica mentioned that getting out of that state, we're shifting states all the time, and so if you're in a tool being productive, and it can give you that information in the tool, that's awesome. I think the harder problem is her problem, which is the human problem of getting the human interaction, and what does that mean, and what kind of problems need to be solved with this. They're just scratching the surface on this recognition stuff. Our numbers show that if you're doing recognition and you're doing right, they have some numbers on their website, by the way, that has a real effect on profitability. I mean, it's really about the numbers and cents. And if you are recognizing people on a regular basis, in 7 days is that key, they're kind of tied into this piece. And I tell you what Gallup would love to have is a strengths bot where people could come in and talk and get information. Hey, so tell me about a ranger, and that bot would kick back some information and help people know and understand those things. Have this Gallup bot. Yeah, we're working on an app for Alexa, which is kind of cool, where you can say those kinds of things. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's in beta, probably super secret. I probably wasn't supposed to say anything, but nobody out there.
Well, but what about even so I'm thinking of Strengths Finder, and I think of the test that you take. What do you call those? The questionnaire, whatever.
Assessment.
Mm-hmm. The assessment.
Strengths Finder assessment. Yep.
What if instead of sitting down, taking the time to do an assessment, you basically had a conversation, and it was a little bit more conversational? It might take out a little bit of the, because people, their guard might be down a little bit if they're just having a conversation instead of really, picking between one or two. So something maybe where it changes the whole game on how you even do the assessment in the first place and find those strengths. I don't know.
Yeah. No, maybe so. There's some interesting things there. And
if you and me were talking and you were just asking me those yes or no questions, I wouldn't have the same reaction as when I'm, doing it sitting on the computer. So
yeah, no, right on.
I'd be way more natural, right?
Actually, we used to do that with people.
Really? Yeah. Is that where it all started from?
Yeah, it was people.
Gotcha.
People asking the questions, and then you'd score them, and then there was paper, and you take it on paper, and it's gone through a whole bunch of iterations over the years. There's 40 years of research into that crazy Strengths Finder assessment that we do.
I did not know it was okay. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot that Don Clifton spent a lot of time on that assessment.
Okay.
So it's super interesting, but you're right. I mean, the bots can be a way, and really, I mean, this isn't a new idea, right? These bots are just refined, and they're done inside these channels that we're paying attention to.
Right.
And so, with IBM Watson, they're not dropping stuff in Slack. You're getting some kind of email or something from Watson that's saying, hey, you need to pay attention to this because it's about to go down, or you need to optimize this because you're making a ton of money in this right now. You should think about, putting your foot on the gas even more. I think there's some awesome things there that can be done.
Definitely.
All right. Well, there's our bot discussion. I think if you're listening to this and you haven't checked out bots, the easiest way to do that, Veronica mentioned some great sites to go to, but jump on Windows 10 and open up the native version, the Windows 10 version of Skype. They're all there. And I think actually they're in all the versions, to be honest with you. If you have a modern version of Skype, and you're going to have it, they're shutting down some of the old services with Skype, and you're going to have to upgrade. They're getting a little aggressive about that, but that bot section is there. Check them out. They're pretty interesting. Mike, I turned on a sports notification. I think it's an SI app, and it says, what team do you want to follow? And I put the Kansas City Chiefs, and every time there was a news article about the Kansas City Chiefs, it would pop into my Skype and boop, with the link. Super proactive about the teams that I wanted to follow, right?
Very nice.
And that's nothing more than the alert. Again, we were doing this. I remember when I had a pager, this is awful. 1998, I had a pager, and you could subscribe to those kinds of services, and it would send you pages with that, scores, updates, those kinds of things. But there is some sophistication that's coming with it. It's more than just a response, right? There's some sophistication coming with some of these advanced bots.
And Veronica put it perfectly, because when you just mentioned that, I'm thinking, okay, why wouldn't I just open my ESPN app? But when she's talking about, at the very beginning of our conversation, she talked about switching your attention back and forth, right? So if I'm spending my time in, like, let's say Skype for Business, and I'm talking to people, and that's I to switch and look to my phone, or even to go and open Chrome and go to ESPN or something like that, for even a notification to pop up on my phone takes your attention away. You've switched trains of thought. So if it's all coming into one stream, I think that's where I see the benefit of bots. If it's already where you're at, where you're spending a lot of time, it's fantastic. So for me, if there were bots in Excel, that would be amazing, because I spend a lot of time in Excel.
Yes, you do, my friend.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. I won't be surprised that in coming years that we'll have more of this interacting with us, and we're gonna have to figure out how to control it. Like, just you can't do a steady stream of consciousness. You just can't. You just can't. It's got to be narrowed down. We're just getting hit with way too many things, and I like that. I mean, I love the constant bombardment. While we've been talking, I've gotten work stuff that's been coming in, and I've left it, but I can't wait to get to it. Like, I'm like, oh, I can answer that question, whatever. And I constantly get emails from people who are like, do you ever, like, I'll answer questions 12:30 at night, and they'll be like, I didn't expect this till the morning, so maybe you should be sleeping.
Right.
But I enjoy doing it. Well, huge kudos to Veronica for coming on tonight. That was a big interview. Really appreciated having her on. And again, it's great. I watched her do a whole bunch of that media stuff back, 6, 7, 8 years ago now, I think, like that. And kind of fun to have her on and see her doing that kind of stuff. So Veronica, again, thanks for coming on.
I'm a huge DTNS fan, so that was a lot of fun, because her and Tom are just amazing. So
and I haven't listened to that in a while. I think maybe I need to go back to it and
perfect.
Those guys.
It's a great show
over there. Only so many hours in the podcasting day.
It's very true.
And so good. I haven't heard Tom Merritt in a while, so it may be good to get back in on that. Well, remind everyone, if you want to support the show, Amazon affiliate link over there is working again, I believe. I just got paid 86 cents. So thank you. It takes a couple months for that to catch up, by the way. So it was just fun. It was like I saw my earnings report, 86 cents. Well, okay. We got a ways to go, guys. And so, but we'll turn that back into the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund. And as soon as it'll take a couple months for that to build up. Many of you have been using it, so thanks for excuse me. Thanks for getting that done. Also remind you, if you want to join us on Patreon, that's another easy way to do it. And you can just jump in the Patreon link, $1 or $5 or whatever, anything between $1 and $5, whatever you want to do. You just can't do a quarter or 50 cents, dollars a minimum. To do that, we'd appreciate you on Patreon. Head out to theaverageguy.tv/support, or just look in the right-hand side. Those two links are right there. Try to make it super easy for you and try to stay within the rules. Don't forget, you can send me an email if you want, and I'd love to chat about this stuff. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. As much as I bashed email tonight, and then I said you can still send me an email. But that's a great way. Twitter's another great way to contact me if you want to do it that way. @Collison is the way to do it. Don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hostings, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Let me say thanks to you guys as well, to you, the listener, because Christian Skyped me this week. He said, Jim, I don't know what you're doing, but we've just added a whole bunch of customers to the Maple Grove platform. So thank you guys for hearing that. I'm the only one advertising, so it's got to be coming from me or from the site and from Christian's work here. And so thank you for supporting Christian and what he does. See, they're not making any money off that thing, but it's a great service for Christian to learn on and to work with. And he's such a great guy. Plans start as little as $10. So you can head out there, maplegrovepartners.com. And then don't forget, we want to thank LastPass for their sponsorship, what they do in the mobile app as well. I pinged Amber. We're going to try and get her back in early July to be a part of what we're doing here. And so we're looking at getting that done. Don't forget, John Biggs, back next, I shouldn't say back, first time, we're going to talk about Slack. I'm sorry, not Slack, but Plex. There we go. And Mike, some cool stuff going on with Plex right now. Those guys are kicking.
Yeah. And I think even if we wait a week, we might even see a little bit more.
I know.
I think this will be a great time to have the conversation.
If you have not jumped into Plex, I think now is the time. And they've got some cool stuff coming up with live TV, and we've seen it on Android. I mean, we've seen it on the iPhone. We're going to see it on Android shortly.
Yep.
I think it's going to come to Windows here pretty quick, and I think I'm in. I think this is it. I think I'm looking forward. So John's coming on. We're going to talk about some of that. And of course, Mike, you've been doing that as well. And then the week after, special guest Shauna Dorsey's coming on to fill your seat just for a week. And it looks like you're going to be here more often than we thought. So that'll be great. But Shauna's coming on. Aaron Lawrence is coming back. So we're excited to have Aaron back, and we're going to talk about some cool stuff. Aaron's great. I could have Aaron on every other week, and she's doing some great stuff. So she's a great interview. So we'll have her as well. And then Mike, I just booked Mark and Mike to come back for the big grill barbecue show. Yes.
Is that around 4th of July then? That'll be
well, it's going to be the 20th of July, right in the middle of the right in the heart
summer.
of the summer. Yeah.
Perfect.
Heart of the summer. So those guys are coming back on July 20th. So got some great shows. A couple of you new this week, Ryan. I think you're new this week. And Scott, I think you were new this week as well. Gavin, you might as well. I don't know, Gavin, have you been out before? I thought I saw your name before, but this maybe not. But Peter, Mike, Ken, and Gibby as well. I don't think I've seen before. So guys, thanks for coming out tonight. I know we changed the time on you, and I appreciate it. Rennie, it was great to see you. Peter, great to see you. Mike, Howard, and Ken as well. So guys, thanks for jumping out. You did a great job of being great in the chat room. And Gavin says, LOL, adding the barbecue show to my calendar now. You shouldn't. Listen, Gavin, our barbecue show that we did last year, the most popular show of the year, and it's all about tech and barbecue and grill. It was super good.
And if we could figure out a way to get aroma to come through the speakers, it would be even that much more popular.
It was good. These guys
are,
these guys are kicking when it comes to barbecue and grill. So Gibby says no, he's been around since the home server show days. So great. Thanks for hanging out and for being around. Appreciate you guys and what you do. We're live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Every week we're out here, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern at theaverageguy.tv/live. And except this week we changed it a little bit. It's Mike, it's 11:20 in the Central Time Zone. How you doing? You okay?
I'm actually getting my second win, so I don't even know if I'm going to go to bed after this. Yeah, I might get some stuff done.
We'll wind down post show pretty quick, but 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, averageguy.tv/live. With that, we'll say goodnight, everybody.